Thank you very much for your kind introductory words. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome to Azerbaijan. I'm very glad that forum is back on track. As you know, we had several years of break due to COVID and post-COVID situation, but now I'm sure our traditional timetable is completely restored. I'm glad to see representatives from more than 100 countries, actually 110, and this really demonstrates that this forum is a very important international platform to address the issues of intercultural dialogue. In the short video we've seen now, it tells about Baku process. Actually, when we launched the process, we could not even imagine that it will transform into such a global platform to unite peoples, intellectuals, politicians, decision makers, media representatives, representatives of civil society, religious leaders, united with one goal: how to make world more safe and secure, because the basis for that is a dialogue between cultures. I looked at the program of the forum. It's really very wide. It covers many areas. Agenda really is very broad. Cultural diversity, interreligious dialogue, climate change, migration, peace and security, post-conflict situation, tourism, artificial intelligence. I wish productive discussions, and I'm sure that discussions and ideas to be presented during the forum will help us to continue to elaborate approaches towards intercultural dialogue, how to strengthen it, how to work jointly in order to reduce existing and potential threats. Since we met last time in 2019 in Baku, unfortunately, the world did not become safer. On the contrary, we see new conflicts, new areas of instability, and new challenges. Therefore, this audience of esteemed personalities, I'm sure, will contribute to, as I already said, elaboration of ideas and new approaches to address most urgent issues on global agenda. Azerbaijan has its own experience in addressing those issues which are on the agenda of the forum, so I will maybe talk a little bit on how we see our role in these processes and what we have done in order to strengthen these positive trends. Azerbaijan for centuries is a place for cultures to meet. Our geographical location between East and West actually predominated this trend. And multicultural and ethnically diverse Azerbaijani society throughout the centuries managed to protect the most important values of tolerance, mutual respect, friendship and partnership. And one of the main reasons for successful development of Azerbaijan as an independent country, I'm absolutely sure, is exactly that. People, all the peoples who live in Azerbaijan, representatives of different ethnic groups and religions, live as one family, as great citizens of Azerbaijan, as patriots of our state and statehood, and they do everything in order to strengthen our country and to strengthen the positive trends of cultural dialogue and cultural diversity. So having this great experience, which is coming from many ages before, we thought it would be right for us to undertake this initiative and to launch Baku process. And as you know, after 3 years after Baku process was officially launched, we held the first World Forum on Intercultural Dialogue, and now it continues. One of the main reasons and factors of peace and stability and solidarity of Azerbaijani society is exactly cultural diversity and mutual respect. And of course, intercultural dialogue inside Azerbaijan always was very positive. And we demonstrate it on day-to-day life. And when we talk about multiculturalism for Azerbaijani citizens, it's not something which is abstract or something which must be learned. It's how we live. It's our lifestyle. And we are proud of that, and also proud that we managed to protect these values throughout the centuries, and also in this turbulent time of clashes, of conflicts, of wars, which are happening very close to our borders, and also several years ago inside Azerbaijan. So all that is something which we really want to share with our friends, and also to express our firm commitment to continue on this path, which is the only way for, I'm sure, any country to succeed. Because first, you have to address these issues internally and to create such an atmosphere that representatives of all ethnic groups, all religions, feel themselves safe in dignity and treated with respect. If policy is different, it will lead only to discrimination, mistrust, and in the end to social and in many cases political difficulties. It can lead to disintegration of the countries. Therefore, our experience is really a demonstration how we managed to survive in the very difficult first years of independence, when we've been occupied, and also there have been a lot of economic and social difficulties. There were attempts to disintegrate Azerbaijan, and aggressive separatism was actually challenging our statehood, the unity of all the peoples who live in Azerbaijan, their commitment to the national interests was a crucial factor for our success. The role of religious leaders, of course, in this context is of special importance. And one of the topics which you will discuss is particularly that. We have more than 100 religious leaders attending the forum, and I'm sure they will contribute to strengthen mutual understanding and mutual respect. For Azerbaijan, interreligious dialogue is also something which we strongly advocate for. We organized in our country numerous events on interreligious dialogue. Part of these discussions were within the framework of World Forum on Intercultural Dialogue. Part was on different agenda. There'll be a special session, a special discussion format during the COP29 on interreligious dialogue. So I'm sure that the big audience of religious leaders from all over the world in these days in Baku will demonstrate solidarity and leadership, because the words of religious leaders are very important for all the peoples in the world. And when they hear from them positive messages of peace, tolerance, mutual respect, of course, it's a very important factor But sometimes we hear different messages, unfortunately, and which create additional tensions. So I think that positive trends in this direction must be strongly supported. One of the issues to be discussed is multilateralism, and here also Azerbaijan can demonstrate its experience. We are strongly committed to multilateralism, and actually we've been promoting the values of multilateralism during our 4 years chairmanship in non-aligned movement since 2019 until the beginning of this year. We, by unanimous decision of all 120 countries, been elected and chaired the second after United Nations biggest international institution. And by the way, our chairmanship was extended for 1 more year, also by unanimous decision, and strongly committed to the founding principles of non-aligned movement, which are territorial integrity, sovereignty of the countries, non-interference into internal affairs of the countries. At the same time, we tried to strengthen institutional segment of the movement. Based on our initiative, parliamentary network was created for the first time, youth and women platform was created. So these are all the legacy of Azerbaijan, and I'm sure that the future institutional development of non-aligned movement will continue, because the world now needs a big group of countries which do not belong to none of the confronting poles, which have their own agenda, have their own rights. Most of these countries had a very difficult and tragic colonial past, and the voice of these countries must be heard. They cannot be ignored. And our chairmanship in NAM actually was aimed at that, to make the movement more vocal, more active, proactive, and more capable. And we, during the COVID time, also used the platform of NAM in order to address important issues of this tragic disease. Pandemic hit all the countries, and Azerbaijan was among the countries who actively spoke and acted against vaccine nationalism. As you may remember, in the first months of the pandemic, there was a shortage of vaccine. And many countries which had a lot of money, they just stockpiled, some of them 5 times more vaccines than they needed. And thus, how to say, destroying the health system of many other countries which could not get access to vaccines. So fight against the vaccine nationalism was on top agenda of Azerbaijan as a chair of NAM. We addressed this issue also during the special session of UN General Assembly initiated by us. One of the issues which we always addressed as a chair of non-aligned movement was a fight against neocolonialism. As I already said, most of the countries of non-aligned movement had a very dark and tragic colonial past. And fight against neocolonialism is something which strongly believe in. It's just because we speak for justice, we speak for international law, and we cannot afford today in the 21st century some big European countries to continue to colonize other peoples. This is absolutely unacceptable. And when we raise our voice in national capacity and previously as a chair of NAM, it's not because we do something against a country. It's just because we defend justice and international law. it should not be ignored. The world should not turn a blind eye on this disgusting practice of neocolonialism, which actually leads now to assimilation, forceful assimilation of more than 10 French overseas territories is absolutely unacceptable and must be stopped. And I wonder why the European institutions, which sometimes try to interfere into internal affairs of the countries which are not situated in Europe, such as European Parliament and Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, are silent. Don't they see that neocolonialism today continues? Why don't they criticize? Why don't they impose sanctions? Why don't they raise their voice? We do it, yes, as a chair of NAM, that was our duty. And now, as a country which, and the people who lived in other countries, in other empires, and we know what it is to be free and independent, we want to help these people to protect their rights, to achieve independence, to be able to promote their culture, to protect their language. This is something which I think every normal human being will defend. So this is an important issue also, I think, for intercultural dialogue. We cannot demonstrate hypocrisy and double standards, or just to ignore or to turn a blind eye when we see that hypocrisy and double standards are demonstrated. When you articulate very pleasant to the ear values of tolerance, dialogue, democracy, human rights, and at the same time continue to colonize more than a dozen overseas territories, this is nothing but hypocrisy and must be stopped. Multilateralism and our experience in this area, of course, will help us to be a president of COP29. By unanimous decision, Azerbaijan was elected as a host country, and we see our role in building bridges. Because I already said our history, our geography, our interaction with European institutions, at the same time being here just geographically between West and East, we can do a lot. And our experience as a chair of NAM also will help us to build bridges. I think for successful development of the issues related to climate change, we need not only finance. Finance will be, by the way, the main topic of COP29. We need solidarity and mutual trust. And we should not try to put the blame on each other and to argue who did more in order to damage the planet and who is responsible for global warming. If we do it, if we continue acting like that, it will be a disaster. Also, and I spoke recently at one of the important climate conference, there should be no discrimination against oil-producing countries. And I said and want to repeat that it's not our fault that we have oil and gas. Some others have other natural resources. And of course, every country has a right to use its natural resources for the benefit of the country. And not only your own country. As far as Azerbaijan is concerned, we provide energy security, supplying natural gas to 8 countries. And if you look at our geography of oil supply, it's maybe several times more. So our efforts will be building bridges between Europe and Global South, strengthen solidarity. We can do it, I think. Of course, we will need to work hard, but our agenda is that. At the same time, we have our own green agenda, which started long before we've been awarded with the honor to host COP29. By 2027, we will have 2 gigawatt of solar and wind power stations operational, and by 2030, we will have additional 5 gigawatt of solar and wind also operational, and that will allow us 100% to use renewables for production of electricity. So this is what we do with revenues from oil and gas. We create a very good investment climate, attracting investors, at the same time investing ourselves in renewable sources, and this is a factor we must be judged by international community, and not because we have oil and that means that we did something wrong. We didn't do anything wrong, and Azerbaijan's performance in issues related to climate change, I think, can be considered as an example. And the last point, also referring to your agenda of discussions, peace and security and post-conflict situation. Azerbaijan ensured peace by war. So I think this should be thoroughly examined. We've been under occupation for almost 30 years. And during all the previous World Fora on International Dialogue, I was speaking about occupation, injustice, and suffering of the people of Azerbaijan. Almost 20% of our international recognized territories was occupied until 2020, just from the first days of our independence. And 1 million Azerbaijanis became refugees and internally displaced. We've been a victim of ethnic cleansing from Karabakh, Eastern Zengezur. So it was total devastation, and now those who go and visit liberated territories, they can see it with their own eyes. I know that some of the participants will visit liberated territories. So we've been raising our voice. Yes, we were working hard on diplomatic track. All the major international organizations adopted resolutions and decisions, demanding withdrawal of Armenian forces, including UN Security Council, 4 resolutions. But it did not work. There was no mechanism of implementation. Armenia ignored them, and those who adopted those resolutions did not do anything in order to implement them. So we had to achieve peace by war. What we've done in 2020, 44 days of patriotic war, allowed us to liberate biggest part of the liberated territories. And last September, we totally restored our territorial integrity and sovereignty. And now we are in the post-conflict situation. And in this post-conflict situation, again, it was Azerbaijan which behaves proactively. It was Azerbaijan which offered Armenia to start negotiations on peace agreement. It was Azerbaijan, the country which elaborated basic principles and even drafted the peace agreement. And now negotiations between 2 countries are being held based on our draft proposal. So suffering of the people for almost 30 years, violation of international law, total destruction of all our cultural and historical sites, including 65 mosques by Armenian vandals, 65 out of 67. Liberation of our territories by force, with a strong opposition from those countries which provide sponsorship for Armenia. Full restoration of territorial integrity and sovereignty last September and again being a subject of unjustified political attacks from Armenian so-called guarantors. And despite all that, proposal for peace. So now we see positive trends on the peace track. At the same time, on the border delimitation, it actually started. Not only delimitation, but demarcation. And it is happening, but when I speak, it's happening now. And this was achieved by two countries without any mediation. And this once again demonstrates that we don't need mediators, especially those who pursue their own goals and those who don't want to help, but who want to penetrate to our region for their personal, political and economic interests, and those who want again to put on oil to the fire and to exploit the Southern Caucasus. We will not allow that to happen. I think Azerbaijan and Armenia, after 30 years of confrontation, clearly understand that we need peace in the Southern Caucasus, and the peace in the Southern Caucasus can be achieved only through normalization between Azerbaijan and Armenia. I will conclude now in order not to take much of your time. Thank you for your attention. Wish you all the best, good discussions, and pleasant stay in Azerbaijan. Thank you.